Yeah, yeah, yeah. So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit of accomplice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge, they don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like, wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Welcome back to all of those that made it from the last live, because I heard my sister was on there blocking y'all like blockity block, 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 block. But welcome back to those of you that followed instructions, and so you still are able to talk in this good chat. But nonetheless, my name is Pam Esquire, also known as the Law Intellect. Again, we were on earlier going over the transcript, and then there was a document drop. You guys read it correctly. Sean Combs has asked for a mistrial, well, renewed mistrial, because apparently he asked for it when he was in court, and now he has put it on paper, and it is based on prosecutorial misconduct. Okay. And people have asked me about this related to the testimony. If there were, the alleged perjury that happened with Bryana Bongolan, they're saying the balcony incident never happened. They proved that it never happened, and they felt like the government knew it wasn't true when they took this testimony. So that's called suborning perjury, is what they are alleging. Now, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go over the testimony of which Westmoreland had that bombshell moment for some of you guys, because I think that you didn't see the gravity of it without the transcript. So we're going to go over that right quick, and then we're going to go over the 6-page letter motion for a mistrial. Because y'all know one thing they're going to do over there in Fulton County, them lawyers over there in Georgia, they're going to ask for a mistrial, okay? Y'all seen that. It was a mistrial every time you turned around. It was a mistrial. So this is part of the transcript when Westmoreland was examining Bongolan. Now, this is Cassie's friend who alleges that he picked her up and had her, I don't know how she was, somehow over this balcony. So Westmoreland was setting this thing up. And interestingly, because I even had seen some attorneys, I was like, what do you mean? What are they doing? I don't know why they asked them questions. Them questions is dumb. I'm like, y'all not picking up what she putting down? She kept asking her, you weren't telling the truth, were you? She's like, I was telling the truth. She would say whatever, build it up, catch her in a bunch of lies, then say, that's because you were lying, right? This incident never happened. I was telling the truth. And she got her to say that a bunch of times, right? And then towards the end, you see, this was the question. She says, all right, let's talk about the photos of your injuries, okay? She says, okay. Okay, now one photo you turned over these photos to the government, true? True. All right, and one photo was a picture of your leg, right? Yes. Okay, and you described that picture as being on the back of your thigh, true? Somewhere back in my leg, yes. And you described it as a deep cut with some bruising around it, true? I said it was a big bruise with like, I can't remember what I said, but like some type of piercing. Okay. And you told the government that this balcony incident happened early in the morning, true? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And that the photo was taken later that day at your apartment, true? Yes, ma'am. So what she is alleging, because some people was like, that don't mean nothing. She could have got the date mixed up. What she is saying is that what Westmoreland was able to pull out of her is she's saying when she took the picture, it was the same day that she's saying this balcony incident happened. So she's saying it was the same day. When she took the pictures of her bruises, the same time the balcony. So it happened early in the morning and then she took the pictures later. So the date on that picture should be the date of the incident if you took it the same way, if you took the picture the same day. All right. Okay. And that photo was taken later that day at your apartment, true? Yes, ma'am. And that you were alone when you took the photo, right? Yes, ma'am. Okay, and then you provided another photo, the one with you in the neck brace, right? Yes, ma'am. The bandages. And you explained that your photo was airdropped or texted to you, true? I explained that because I couldn't remember, but that's what you said. Yes, ma'am. Okay, and you told the government that during an interview, right? Sorry, say that again. You told the government that during the interview that it was airdrop or texted to you, true? Yes. And you testified to that yesterday, right? Yes. And you testified yesterday that both of those injuries happened on the same day, true? Sorry, say that again. You testified yesterday on direct. You were shown both of your photos, right? Yes, ma'am. And Madam Prosecutor asked you about the second photo. That was the one with your back and your neck. You remember that, right? Yes. And she asked you if both of those injuries happened on the same day, and you testified it did. True? Yes. Okay, can you please publish government exhibit? So she using you on you. So she pulled up the government's exhibit. This is the picture of your leg, right? Yes. And can you please make the date big for us? It's like enlarge the date. Thank you. All right. And you agree with me that this is Monday, September 26, 2016. True? Yes. At 9:45 a.m. True? Yes. And this is the metadata from your phone, right? Yes, ma'am. So according to the picture, she took them at 9:45. It shows that it was taken at 9:45 a.m., which was supposed to be later on because allegedly the balcony incident happened super early in the morning, like 2, 3 o'clock or whatever. Okay, can you remove the part and keep the exhibit up? And at the bottom of the exhibit, it shows that this is your phone, an Apple phone 7, right? Yes. And it shows your location, true? Yeah. Okay, and this is the metadata from your phone, right? Yes, ma'am. Okay, you can take that down. Ma'am, are you familiar with the Bad Boy Reunion tour, aren't you? Yeah, because you worked on that tour, on a portion of it, true? I worked on it unofficially. Okay, but you worked on it, right? Yeah. Okay, and you started it, but you didn't finish the tour, right? Could you explain that further? You told the government you started on the tour, but you didn't finish it, true? I don't really understand what you're saying. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, you worked on some portion of the Bad Boy tour, true? Like I didn't attend certain dates. Right, but you attended some of them. Maybe like one? Okay, two maybe, one? Do you remember Cassie's travel schedule during the month of September? No. Do you remember Mr. Combs' travel schedule during the month of September? No. I'd like to show you some documents to see if it will refresh your recollection. So then they go through all that about refreshing the recollection and all of that. Okay, so after you finish reviewing, please look up at me. So after you looking at these documents, I'm gonna need you to look up at me. All right, please take that down. Can you please pull up Defense Exhibit 1881 just for the parties? They reviewed it, pulled up 1886. Thank you. Miss Bongolan, you know that Mr. Combs performed at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, September 25th, true? 2016, true? I don't know personally, but I see. And you are aware that Mr. Combs and Cassie were in New Jersey on September 25th, 2016, true? It was an objection and overruled. I'm not aware. All right, you're aware that the Bad Boy Reunion tour was going on September 2016, true? I know it was going on, but I'm not for sure on dates. Ma'am, you're aware that Mr. Combs was on stage on the night of the 25th at the Bad Boy Reunion tour performing alongside with Lil' Kim. Objection. Is there a question? True. She's like, I'll make it into a really leading question. True. Can you re-say that? Ma'am, you're aware that Mr. Combs on September 25th was performing on stage Bad Boy Reunion tour with artist Lil' Kim. I can't recall. In New Jersey, you can't recall? No, ma'am. All right. Well, are you aware that on September 26th, Mr. Coleman Cassie was in New York at the Boys and Girls Harbor, a salute to achievement benefit? Are you aware of that? Objection. So then they had a whole sidebar. Okay. Because the government, like, time's out, time's out. All right. So then I don't believe that you had the opportunity to answer the question that I just asked you. I'll repeat it for you, okay? Please. All right. Are you aware that on September 26th, Mr. Combs and Miss Cassie was at New York at the Boys and Girls Harbor Salute to Achievement Benefit Award? Not aware. Are you aware that on September 26th, Mr. Combs with the Bad Boy Reunion Tour was also doing a signing at Macy's? Not aware. I like to publish. Can you please publish Exhibit 7Y111? Thank you. Can you please go up to the top and highlight the name a little bit for us? Ma'am, do you see at the top of this document that it says Mr. Frank Black? I see it. Okay, do you know who that is? No. No. All right, you see at the top it says Trump International Hotel and Tower, New York. You see that? Yeah. All right, can you please go to arrival and departure? Do you see that it says arrival September 24th, 2016, with the departure of September 29th, 2016? Remember, she's alleging the balcony incident happened on September 25th, 2016. Oh, I see that. You see that? All right, let's go back up the page a little bit. All righty, let's go to September 25th, breakfast. Thank you. Do you see on here room charges, breakfast on September 25th, 2016? I see it. Okay, can we go down to, I'm sorry, September 26th, and let's just highlight all of September 26th, please. All right, thank you. Do you see something at the top of September 26, 2016? Runner's fee, $5? Yes, ma'am. All right, do you see September 26, 2016 in-room dining breakfast, $210.31? Yeah, I see that. You see that? Okay. Let's go down. Do you see September 26, 2016 in-room dining, $107.84? Do you see that? Yes, I do. Okay, and then below that, we have another in-room dining charge, same day, September 26, 2016, $102.77. You see that? Yes, ma'am. All righty, September 26, 2016, next line, $344.65. Another in-room dining charge. Do you see that? Yes, I do. All righty. Can you take that down? I mean, go back in. Let's go back to September 27th. Last line on the page, please. All right. Do you see September 27, 2016, in-room dining, $21.57? Yes, I do. Okay, please take that down. Ma'am, Miss Bongolan, you agree that one person can't be in two places at the same time. In like theory, yeah. You're not sure? Hard to answer that one. Miss Bongolan, you told us that you testified that Mr. Combs on September 26, 2016, came in Cassie Ventura's house, hung you over a balcony, threw you into some furniture, and that you sustained several injuries. That's what you testified to, the ladies and gentlemen of this jury. Did you not? Objection. Can we get a new question? Judge, like, hold on. Can we get a new question? Yes. Ma'am, you testified that Mr. Combs caused you the injuries that you showed the ladies and gentlemen of this jury on September 26, 2016. That's what you testified to, right? Objection. I'll rephrase the question, Your Honor. The court said, all right. Ma'am, you testified that Mr. Combs caused you the injuries on your leg, the neck, and your back on September 26, 2016. Isn't that true? Objection, Your Honor. May we have a sidebar? So they sidebar. Hold on, time's out. Damn. Miss Westmoreland, continue. You may proceed when ready. Thank you, Your Honor. Ma'am, yes. Mr. Combs did not cause you the injuries that you showed us that we saw on your phone with the metadata from September 26, 2026. I guess it was 2016, supposed to be, did he? I can't agree with that. You do agree with me that you gave the photo. Can you pull the photo up one more time? Thank you. Zoom out. Let her see the full photo, please. Ma'am, you provided this photo to the government, didn't you? Yes. Okay, and you understand that metadata, you didn't create the metadata, did you? No. No. So you gave this photo to the government with the metadata showing this picture was taken on September 26, 2016. True? Yes. And you would agree with me that one person cannot be in California and in New York at the same time. My answer is still the same. In theory, yes. Ma'am, you came in here and you lied to the ladies and gentlemen of this jury. Isn't that true? I can't agree with you. She said, I have no further questions. So, so let's you know what? So on direct examination, of course, they tried to rehab her. I mean on redirect, I'm sorry. Okay, so they trying to admit something else to try to help them. So apparently on the 30th, Cassie she must have sent a text to Christina Coram and was like, oh my God, Puff held the Bryana over a balcony or something. So she tried to enter that in, basically, and it was on the 30th of September. She allegedly called Christina about it. Of course, it was hearsay within hearsay. It was a text. But I think the court allowed it to be in. Because remember, there was also an issue with she said that the information that her attorney put in the demand letter weren't true. So that's why she fired him. And so, yeah, okay. Let's see what the redirect, how they try to rehab her. Miss Bongolan, do you remember being shown certain notes during your cross-examination? Yes, ma'am. Before defense counsel showed you those notes, had you ever seen them before? No. And do you know whether those notes are supposed to be an exact transcript of everything that happened at the meeting? I wouldn't know. Had you ever even asked to review them? No. So basically, probably the notes that were taken when she met with the government. Had you ever been asked to check them for accuracy? Never been asked. So basically, whatever they took down could have been inaccurate. They wasn't asking her whether it was correct or not when they was catching her up in a cross-examination saying things that may not have been consistent. Do you remember being asked on cross-examination about talking to Cassie around the time of her lawsuit? Yes. So before Cassie filed her lawsuit in November of 2023, did you have a conversation with her about that lawsuit? Yes, I did. Did you have one conversation or multiple conversations before she filed the lawsuit? Just one. And in that one conversation, what did Cassie ask you? My permission to use her name. And to use your name about what? The incident to put in her lawsuit. And what did you say in response? I said no. Before you saw Cassie's lawsuit, did you know what information was going to be in her complaint? Not at all. Did you know whether the complaint would include an account of what happened on the balcony? Sorry, could you say that again? Sorry, what did you say? Could you say that again? Yeah. Did you know whether Cassie's complaint before it was filed was going to include statements about what happened on the balcony? I had an idea because she asked for my name, but you told her not to include it in her complaint, right? It was objection leading. What did you tell Cassie in response to her asking if she could include that in her complaint? To please not put my name in there. Did you end up reading the complaint after it was filed? Yes. And what did you do when you after you read the complaint? At some point I hit her up to tell her that it was incorrect. And what were you telling her that was incorrect? Like it wasn't at a hotel and Tiffany wasn't there. So remember, in Cassie's lawsuit, I think Cassie thought there was corroboration to what she was saying. So that's kind of goes with them trying to put a text in there about the balcony incident. When now this girl, when she gets on the stand, she's basically saying there's nobody to corroborate her story because nobody was there but her and Puff. Cassie wasn't there, apparently, according to her. And in Cassie's lawsuit, she mentioned Tiffany being there. She said Tiffany wasn't there neither. And she allegedly called Cassie and told her, girl, you got this whole story wrong. Well, not the whole story, because she do allege the balcony incident. But what she's saying is she got it wrong as far as there was nobody there. And then it wasn't at a hotel, which leads you to believe that Cassie heard this story through a third party. Like she just heard some hearsay and she threw it in her complaint when she was throwing everything up against Diddy in that complaint. So then the government says, so to be clear, in that conversation after the complaint had been filed, were you and Cassie trying to make up a story, or were you telling Cassie what actually happened to you? So that was leading, sustain. Were you telling Cassie what happened to you? Again, sustain. What were you telling Cassie about? Took the government a minute to get it right. I know that cross-examination probably had them a little flustered. Exactly what happened to me. And do you have any doubt that Mr. Combs held you up on a balcony? Could you rephrase that, please? Do you have any doubt that Mr. Combs held you up on a balcony? I have no doubt. When Cassie filed her lawsuit in November of 2023, had you told her that you were going to sue Mr. Combs? No. And in fact, in November of 2023, when Cassie filed her lawsuit, had you even decided to file your own lawsuit yet? Not at all. Exactly. Once that's their point. Once she filed it, everybody started saying, me too. Me too. That's, I mean, you're kind of proving the defense's point. Did you hire an attorney then, or was it a few months later? A few months later. And when you filed your lawsuit, was what you said about the balcony incident the same or different from what is in Cassie's lawsuit? It was different. And are you getting any money from testifying here today? Not at all. Why would she get money to be testifying in a criminal case? Why are you here today? To seek justice. Ms. Bongolan, do you remember talking about the balcony incident on your cross-examination? Yes. And is everything you said today truthful regarding your best recollection of what happened on the balcony that night? Yes. Do you remember every single detail of what happened? Not every single detail. Are there certain details that you will never forget? 100%. Will you never forget Mr. Combs holding you up on the 17th floor balcony? Another leading, sustain. What will you not forget? I will never forget him holding me on that balcony. So she's basically it's like the government's doing a leading question, which they're not supposed to on there because they're the one doing direct. So they're doing leading questions, which basically gives you the answer. Then they're coming back with the open-ended question that they should have asked in the first place. And they're saying, what will you never forget? And then basically she's responding with the leading question. I will never forget him holding me on that balcony. How did you feel when he was holding you on that balcony? Terrified. Miss Bongolan, do you remember being asked about what you told the government in certain meetings? Could you explain that? Do you remember being asked on cross-examination about what you told the government in various meetings? Yes. And in those meetings, did you answer the questions that the government asked? Yes. And over the course of those meetings, did the government ask you about every topic that you talked about today? Not every topic. Every time you were asked about the balcony incident, did you tell the government that Mr. Combs held you up on the balcony? Sorry, could you say that again? Every time you were asked in those meetings about the balcony incident, did you tell the government that Mr. Combs held you up on the balcony? 100%. And every time you were asked about the balcony incident, did you tell the government that Mr. Combs was screaming at you? You know what the F you did? Yes, ma'am. And every time you were asked about the balcony incident, did you tell the government that Mr. Combs threw you onto the balcony furniture? Yes. Ms. Bongolan, on cross-examination, you were asking questions about you and Cassie partying. Do you remember that? Yes, I do. When you say party, do you mean using drugs? It could mean multiple things. In some contexts, do you mean using drugs? Yes. Ms. Bongolan, do you remember being asked on cross-examination about a demand letter that your first lawyer sent? Yeah. Did you write those demand letters or did your lawyers? The lawyers wrote them. Did you review the demand letters before they were sent? Not all of them. After they were sent, did you at some point find out what they said? Now, notice she said she didn't read all of them. So she done read some of them demand letters from Blackburn. After they were sent, did you at some point find out what they said? Yes. And were those accurate? No. And when you learned they were inaccurate, what did you do? Fired him. Do you remember being asked on cross-examination about the demand letter saying that Mr. Combs squeezed your breast so hard that you had bruises? I remember. And was that what you had said? No, ma'am. Do you remember being asked on cross-examination about your complaint alleging sexual assault? Yes, I remember. Miss Bongolan, when you describe what Mr. Combs did when he came up behind you on that balcony, do you use hand motions to explain? Yes. And did you do that in your first meeting with the government? I don't remember. So basically, the hand motions is the way he picked her up, it would have been on the side, so it may have like brushed against her. That's what they're getting at. Have you done that in other meetings with the government? Yes. Could you please use your hands to explain what Mr. Combs did when he came up behind you? First, they came up like this. Is that under your armpits? Right here. And then what did he do? He came down, and I can't put my hands back, but then he lifted me up. And so when he was moving his hands up and down your body, where did his hands go? It came down this way. So were they on your breast? Yes. And Miss Bongolan, are you a lawyer? No, ma'am. Did your lawyers hear those facts and draft a complaint on your behalf? Yes. Miss Bongolan, do you remember Miss Westmoreland asking you about a photo with your neck brace? Yes. Why were you wearing that neck brace? Because my neck hurt and the chiropractor showed me what to do. And did you wear that neck brace more on more occasions than just when you took the photos? Yes. Why did your neck hurt, Miss Bongolan? Because I got slammed on the furniture. By whom? By Puff. Miss Bongolan, do you remember being asked about the date of the balcony incident? Yes, I do. Do you have an independent memory of the exact date aside from relying on metadata on your phone? Yes, you do. They wasn't expecting that. So they thought, they say, oh, I'm just relying on what the phone says, but I don't really know the exact date. Could you explain independent? Yeah, do you, setting aside your phone, know what date, exact date that happened, or do you just know around when that happened? So they're trying to say, even though she testified, she took these pictures on the same day that this incident happened. Now they're trying to get from her that she really didn't know the date. The only way she knows the date is because of the date that's on the picture. So that's what she's relying on to kind of give the impression that perhaps that wasn't the right date. Why? Because the defense then pulled up metadata to show and show hotel receipts, not only just hotel receipts, but also we know Frank Black has been talked about a lot of times. That's the name for Diddy. And so there were room service receipts that we went down for multiple days from which he was there. Then they had the location, the Boys and Girls Club, something at the Prudential Center, all this other stuff he had going on with the Bad Boy tour. And Cassie was with him. So when she says she got an independent recollection, it kind of think through the government off. Like, are you saying you just noticed outside of the date on here? So she's kind of basically she's gonna clean that up. Miss Bongolan, do you yourself know the exact date of when the balcony incident occurred? No. So now she don't know the exact date when they pulled it up that he wasn't there. Regardless of, and why do you not know the exact date? Because it was a while ago. Regardless of that exact date, do you have any doubt that Mr. Combs held you up on the 17th floor balcony? I have no doubt. See, the problem with that to say regardless of the date is if you're saying he injured you, you also have a civil lawsuit going on of which you're saying you had injuries. So, and you're using this as so those pictures do come into play one way or another. So Miss Westmoreland said, oh, I got recross. Okay. So she says, ma'am, after your new lawyers filed a lawsuit on your behalf claiming sexual assault, you didn't fire them, did you? No. So you're saying that about Blackburn, that you fired him because he basically was making stuff up about an actual assault. But the actual assault was in the lawsuit too. And you read that. And you just said you read that. And you didn't fire them. So is that really the reason why you fired Blackburn? Ma'am, you have multiple interviews with the government about the alleged balcony situation. True? Yes. And you gave the government the pictures of your leg injury. True? Yes, I gave it. And in a follow-up interview, you gave the government the picture of your leg injury with your metadata. True? I gave them pictures. Okay. And you testified that all of your injuries happened on the same day. True? Yes. Okay, ma'am. When you filed a lawsuit against Mr. Combs, you weren't rich, were you? No. You suing Mr. Combs is your opportunity to become a millionaire. Isn't that true? I can't agree with that. You can't? No, ma'am. Okay, as you testify today, you don't want to say anything to mess up your lawsuit. True? Could you rephrase that, please? As you testify here today, you don't want to say anything to mess up your lawsuit. Isn't that true? I'm only speaking on what I know, ma'am. So she wouldn't answer yes or no. Okay. Okay, ma'am. As you testified today, you're seeking $10 million. Isn't that true? I'm seeking whatever the judge finds is correct. And you are asking, hey, judge or a court to find in your favor for $10 million. Isn't that true? My lawyer wrote that number down. Now, she ain't had nothing to do with the number either. And you reviewed your complaint. I asked you that earlier. Isn't that true? Yes, I did. So you know that that's what's being asked for you on your behalf. True. I understand what's being asked. It means a lot to you to hope to become a millionaire soon. True. Not at all. You don't care about becoming a millionaire. I care about justice, and justice for you, justice to be served, and justice for you is money. No, ma'am. $10 million to be exact. No, ma'am. I have no further questions. Okay. So that is the exact testimony that is the cause of this motion for a mistrial that I am about to pull up. Again, I think they asked for it in court, obviously, because this is a renewed motion. Cheney said, doubt they can't convict him. It's too many holes in the case. We'll see. The date of the chiropractor visit should clear it up. No, because she didn't go to the chiropractor the same day. She waited. So that was supposed to be long after. Yes, please engage. We like everybody's perspective, even if it isn't ours, but just be respectful, please. Please. Neldo said he did not hang her. Remember the evidence the government submitted, which where the photos were taken on the 26th of September. Puff and Cassie were in New York, so that evidence says she lied. Okay. That's why I wanted to make sure that I pulled up the exact testimony before I pull up this 5-page motion for basically a mistrial. All right, so let's move on. Let me see. Let's pull it up. I think I got a Cash App over here. Look at y'all blessing me on a Friday. Thank you, Moonlighting Resume Service. I appreciate it. All right, so this is the motion for a mistrial that was filed today. This is the renewed motion for a mistrial based on prosecutional misconduct. There was a previous motion that I think Brian Steele had done, but this is the second one that they've done for this specific reasoning. The defense respectfully submits this letter in support of its renewed motion for a mistrial based on prosecutional misconduct. When the introduction of perjured testimony results in a criminal conviction and, quote, the prosecution knew or should have known of the perjury, the conviction must be set aside. So they letting them know if he gets convicted and you know you didn't suborn perjury or gathered perjured testimony from one of these witnesses, then that's a reason to set the conviction aside. So we might be going through all of this for no reason. If there is any reasonable likelihood the false testimony could have affected the judgment of the jury. That's U.S. v. Wallich, which is in the Second Circuit. Moreover, quote, the prosecutor's knowing use of perjured testimony can violate the due process clause, even if only it undermines a witness's credibility, end quote. That's United States v. Cromity. That's over in the Second Circuit in 2013. And they're quoting U.S. v. Aguirre, which is a United States Supreme Court case. As the Supreme Court has explained, quote, a lie is a lie, no matter what its subject. And if it is in any way relevant to the case, the district attorney has the responsibility and duty to correct what he knows to be false and to elicit the truth, end quote. That's Napier v. Illinois, which is also a United States Supreme Court case. As explained above, in this trial, the government has presented testimony that it knew or should have known was materially false related to its allegation that Mr. Combs dangled Bryana Bongolan from the balcony of Cassie Ventura's apartment in September 2016. Accordingly, to avoid an unfair conviction in this case, the court should grant a mistrial. The government contends the alleged balcony incident is relevant because, quote, it shows Mr. Combs' violence directed not only to Ms. Ventura, but to other people around Ms. Ventura. Remember, in one of the sidebars or conversations, there was an objection that her testimony about this wasn't even relevant. And the government said it shows that Ms. Ventura basically was aware that he was violent to her and he's violent around her, which almost is supposed to go into the coercion aspect. She is aware of this violence, and because of her awareness, it goes to coercion. We read that in the transcript. The incident, as alleged, is disturbing and powerful evidence, and the government has used it to depict Mr. Combs in an extremely negative light as an angry and dangerous man who terrified Miss Ventura and her friends. The prosecutors elicited evidence about this allegation from both Miss Ventura and Miss Bongolan that is demonstrably false in key respects. They then doubled down using this false testimony to obtain a ruling admitting inadmissible hearsay evidence about it as well, all to present a false narrative to the jury. So that's that text message I told you guys of, I guess, on September 30th, Cassie contacted KK and was like, oh my God, something about the balcony and all. And they trying to use that to make it like she wasn't lying because Cassie contacted KK about it on the 30th in a text. But clearly Cassie got that from Bryana because she wasn't there. That's what she told her. I don't know. The government started by eliciting testimony from Miss Ventura about the allegation that cannot be true. Miss Ventura says she actually saw Mr. Combs holding Miss Bongolan over the balcony railing. Transcript 802. So apparently Cassie testified she was there. Miss Bongolan said wasn't nobody out there on that balcony. I saw him bring her back over the railing of the balcony and then threw her onto the patio furniture. Yet the prosecutors knew she had not actually seen what she described because they had in their possession a text conversation demonstrating that Miss Ventura was told about the alleged incident by another unidentified person. And then this is what the text said. This was the exhibit. Quote, hey, I just found out some crazy-ish. I'm just finding out right now. Nonetheless, they allowed Miss Ventura to continue to insist on cross she had witnessed this incident. Question, and you testified that you saw him throw her onto the patio furniture, right? Answer, yep. He brought her back over the balcony and he threw her down. She persisted in the story even after she was confronted by the text messages. Question, isn't it true that you learned about this incident on the balcony after the fact? Answer, I saw what I saw. So I don't know. Question, has the government in your preparation of your testimony in this case gone over the messages with you? Answer, not this one, no. Thus, the government left the jury with the false impression that Ms. Ventura saw Mr. Combs dangle her friend over the balcony and that this made her fearful of him, when in fact, if there was any incident, Ventura merely heard about it afterwards, considerably lessening any probative value as to her state of mind. So then there's a footnote. As the government also knows, like other witnesses in the case, Ventura and Bongolan have been in frequent contact at key points and have had many opportunities to collaborate on their stories. And in fact, Bongolan admitted the two friends discussed this incident before and after Ventura filed her lawsuit. Bongolan also has an enormous financial motive to lie because she filed a $10 million lawsuit against Mr. Combs based on this same allegation and will benefit by exaggerating the scope of her injuries to obtain damages. The second footnote says, did we get there yet? Okay. Next, the government doubled down by presenting perjured testimony from Bongolan intended to corroborate Ventura's false testimony. So that was the first footnote. Bongolan claimed Combs lifted her up, held her feet in the balcony railing, and that caused injuries to the back of my leg and back and neck pain. That's footnote number 2. Her account makes no sense and seems to be physically impossible. Mr. Combs is only about 6 feet tall, and even if he is bigger than her, he is not tall enough to have been able to hold a shorter adult by her armpit so high that her feet would have been on the balcony railing, as Bongolan testified. California law required balcony railings to have a minimum height of 42 inches. Not they didn't look at the California residential code. See, this is what happened when you get a team of lawyers, all right? I don't even know if I would have thought of that. Like, let me see how high that railing could have been to pick her up and have her dangling. So then it says, Bongolan was very definitive about these injuries, and particularly the bruise to her leg, which is one of the details that stick out of her mind. Question: where did you go after you left Cassie's apartment? Answer: I went to my apartment. Question: what did you do at your apartment? Answer: I was shaking a lot, and then I wanted to take a shower because I felt disgusted, and then I look over behind my leg and I see a huge bruise. Question: we'll talk about the bruise in just a moment. Miss Bongolan, do you remember all the details of the incident that night? Answer: no. Question: do the details that you talked about stick out in your mind? Answer: yes. Question: what, if any, physical injuries did you have as a result of the night? Answer: I had that big bruise with it was like a piercing in the middle of it, and then I had back and neck pain. The government next introduced photographs of the injuries Ms. Bongolan supposedly sustained at the hands of Mr. Combs, including GX3S-102A, a photo depicting the leg injury taken on September 26, 2016 at 9:45 a.m. Ms. Bongolan testified that she took the photos of her leg injury around the same time indicated in the exhibit, that she did so the same day as the incident, and that she, quote, got the injury from being thrown on the balcony furniture. On cross, she confirmed that the balcony incident happened early in the morning, that the photo of the leg bruise was taken later that day, and that the injuries to her back and her leg happened on the same day. The government then introduced photographs of the injuries supposedly sustained at the hands of Mr. Combs during the incident. The government knew, or should have known, this testimony was perjured, and that Ms. Bongolan could not possibly have been injured by Mr. Combs on a Los Angeles balcony in the early morning hours of September 26th, or even the day before that. The government has long known that Mr. Combs was on the East Coast in late September, and specifically at around the time of this alleged incident. The government knew that he had stayed at Trump Hotel in New York City between September 24th through the 29th, 2016. In fact, the government had marked as GX7Y111 the records of the hotel stay, which are now in evidence. And it has had other evidence in its possession for some time showing that Mr. Combs' travel schedule and proving he was on the East Coast when it told the jury he dangled Miss Bongolan over a balcony in front of Miss Ventura. So then there's redactions. Apparently, that's probably. They said, moreover, a simple Google search confirms Mr. Combs was on the East Coast performing. See example, Puff Daddy Bad Boy Reunion Tour ignites Newark despite BIG hole. So they actually have an article from September 26th. I'll pull that up in a minute. Anyways, let's go on. Let me see. I gotta hit entertainment or something. I need them to do better with their hyperlinks, because that ain't hyperlinking. Okay. Let me see. Felicia said, I'm not sure if this was asked, but in your professional experience, do you think the mistrial would be granted? If so, why? If not, why not? Judges do not like granting mistrial, so it's a long shot. But do I think they have good points? Absolutely. And if they don't grant it, oftentimes they'll say, let the Court of Appeals handle it. But from the Court of Appeals perspective, prosecution is not supposed to knowingly suborn perjury or to elicit perjury. And if they do, they're supposed to have the duty of candor to let the court know. Okay, we thought this person was telling the truth. I'm gonna let you know, child, this is something totally different. And they've done it. I've seen prosecutors do it in the middle of trial, and then they actually disregard their entire testimony. So you have a right to correct it, especially if the government doesn't know. but it is a rationale for a mistrial, because as you see from the case law that they cited, that is a reasoning to retry, to set aside the verdict if somebody is found guilty and retry them. Now, do judges like to do it? Absolutely not, especially when they've done things that they've done these cases that have required so much time and resources. They've been working on this Combs situation, and they was in and out of court for the bond hearing with 3-4 times. It's been motion after motion. It's been a lot of work on this case, and then trying to get it up within the speedy trial time. Yeah. So I don't think he would want to, but I would be shocked if he does. But have judges done it? Yeah, but do they like to do it? No. Let's keep it real. Said if he gets a mistrial, won't he go back to jail until the next trial date? So no, if he gets a mistrial, if it gets granted hypothetically, then he can request a bond. He can go through the whole bond process again. They would have to because it's going to be up to the government if they want to retry the case. The government is going to have to weigh, do Cassie want to come back and do this again? Do any of these other unidentified pseudo name people want to go through this again? Do any of these people want to go through this again? So they have to decide whether they're going to bring it back. Assuming that they say, we're definitely going to retry the case. If they say that, then of course he will be rearrested, go through the same arraignment process, and then he would have to ask for a bond hearing the same way he did. And honestly, on this go around, he may be better because he's been in jail so long. So now you got due process issues where he's done we in June, almost a year, and he may or may not have done what y'all saying he did. So now you got that on how long he's been in jail already to weigh on top of all the other rationale he had before. Before the issue was him contacting people in that video showing violence is what really kept him in there. But it may be a difference now because now he had a mistrial and he's been in there for almost a year. So Wayne said, after this, can we find out how much did it cost taxpayers? It probably is a freedom of information or a public record situation where you can ask. I know from a citywide standpoint, I know that I've done it before, but I've never done it from the federal standpoint. So I don't know. Taddy says saying you saw it and someone else saying you weren't there isn't a small detail. It's not. For her to say I was there, I watched it myself, and because what it sounds like is that y'all feeding each other stories, and then everybody's trying to get money, and that's what he's trying to say. He said it's a money grab. He told that artist I mentioned earlier, all of this is a money grab trying to get her stay. She said it might be a money grab, but just like if I was in your position as being your artist, I will bring a bad look to you, and so I need to get up out this contract. And he was like, I respect that, and he let her out the contract. So yeah, I agree with that. It's not a small detail to say you saw it and you didn't see it. Like I agree. Wayne said this group of friends working against the old head. Everybody's friends with Cassie that is testifying. I ain't heard it's except for the assistants, the white men. They were the only ones that never really professed to that, and they didn't stay long to see much. So yes, and that's true, Cheney. They are all close friends now. We can't forget that. They talked to her. The stylist styled her for court. You had this lady said she talked to her the day before, something. She was in contact with her. So yeah, and they're all still very good friends. Andrew said, this is what happens when a bunch of junkies run amok. Felicia said, are the judges appointed or elected? If elected, I can see the concern about not granting a mistrial. No, federal judges are there for life. They are appointed by the president of the United States. They have the most stable position out here because it's very hard for them to be off. So, but judges in general don't like to be appealed. So they don't like to be appealed. However, they don't mind it if they don't want to be the one to make the decision. So like I've seen maybe it was about a month ago, there was a wrongful conviction case, and I was down at criminal court. This was state. And the judge was probably the most honest I've seen. The guy was arguing about some faulty evidence that may have convicted his client, even though it was evidence that's considered acceptable science in Michigan. However, all over the world, they've been challenging it, and it's been a big thing about it. And she said, but generally, as you said, it's accepted in Michigan. It hasn't been overturned. And he said, yeah, but you're not restrained from having a different outcome. Like you can, she's like, I'm not going to be the one to change the law when it comes to that. So you got some people that don't want to ruffle feathers either. So it just depends on how you choose to handle, your position as being a judge. And I've seen various different reactions on how you got some people don't care about getting appealed. They like whatever. You get some people that don't care, that they're the outlier and they go against the grain. They feel like their job is to change the law, so they do it. So it just depends. I don't know this judge, so I don't know. Cece said the perfect plan is what it's given with all friends. I don't know. Toddy said, I think that's evil to leave someone in even when you know it's faulty. Yeah. Make sure y'all please hit the like button. It's your girl's second time coming on today. Show your appreciation by hitting that like. Okay. So let me hold on. I'm going to pull that transcript back up, and that ain't what we was reading. Okay. Is the document even on here? Oh, that's right. Hold on. I think I done jacked it up when I did that. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're down here. What's more, when the defense began to expose the perjury on cross-examination, the government repeatedly attempted to disrupt the cross with unfounded objections and requests for sidebars. And y'all noticed that. That's why I read the transcript. If you didn't, wait till we done and rewind it back. They were. When she started getting caught up, now I did catch that. I'm like, oh, now they got a whole bunch of objections. They was trying to break up the testimony. So they say objections and requests for sidebars and unfounded claims, such as that proper leading questions meant defense counsel was testifying. Then, despite having elicited Ventura's false testimony about having directly witnessed the alleged incident, the government persuaded the court to admit the hearsay text message with quorum describing what Ventura had, quote, found out, end quote, from someone else, despite having elicited perjurious testimony from Ventura claiming she saw the alleged conduct. So at first, the government was not even going to put that information in. But then once that cross started going like that, all they seem to think about is we need to try to corroborate her testimony. I might as well pull it up now. Since they mentioned the sidebar, I'll pull it up. Let's see. Before she did her redirect. So this is the sidebar from I apologize, Your Honor, but given that everything is happening in real time, since Your Honor admitted the text message with Ms. Coram that we had the dispute about, we have discovered that we have 2 text message chains that we believe under the rules should be fair. So they tried to enter their own text message after that. Let me see where, because this is different. So they tried to say rule of completeness. Well, if y'all gonna enter that, we're gonna enter when Christina Coram contacted Diddy, and he was like, "What are you even talking about? I didn't put nobody over no balcony." So there's a text that says that as well. And so they said they wouldn't allow it to go in. Oh, and this while we added sidebar. 1 second. So this right here is when the whole situation of Diddy nodding the head, that came from the government. So I'm gonna throw that in there since I'm going through this transcript. I don't have anything more to say. This is the government talking on that. But I do want to put on the record, Your Honor, that we understand the defendant was nodding furiously in response to some of the questioning. And so we just wanted to make that clear on the record. And the court said outside the presence of the jury. She said, no, not in the presence of the jury in response to Ms. Westmoreland's questioning. And then Ms. Shapiro said, I think that's what Your Honor was asking us to take care of. That was my interpretation to remind Mr. Combs of the court's instruction. The court said, well, I'm concerned. I'm concerned in both directions of improperly influencing the jury. So what would you propose to put on the record that's in the presence of the jury? So the government said, well, I'm not saying that we need to put on the record that Mr. Combs is nodding furiously in front of the jury. I just want to put it on the record, general reminder. And then the court said, yes, please make your record. Is there anything further you'd like to add? She said, thank you, Your Honor. And then Ms. Comey said, the reason the two are related is that Ms. Westmoreland is asking these questions, and then the defendant is testifying from counsel table by nodding his head vigorously, yes, in response to Ms. Westmoreland's questions. So that is the issue we have. And the jury is seeing it, and then we see them writing down. So our concern is the defendant is testifying by nodding affirmatively in response to Westmoreland's questions. So they're saying he's like basically agreeing with his lawyer, and they're saying all of a sudden they see in the jury write stuff down. So they think because he's agreeing with it, somehow it's like he's testifying even though he's not on the stand, as if what she's saying is true. That's what the argument was off the record, what started all of this. The court said, I was very clear in my instructions this morning. So before everything started, they basically told both sides to be careful. Don't be looking at the jury, nodding your head, doing whatever. And everyone understood what I meant because there was an email chain about this between the parties, and I saw it myself. So I caught a sidebar. I did not see it. I was focused on the questions and the answers during the actual testimony, but I take it the government observed this during the questioning. Yes, Your Honor, I'll talk to him. And Ms. Westmoreland said, I'll talk to him, but I'm looking straight ahead at the witness. Ms. Comey said, I'm not suggesting that Ms. Westmoreland is intentionally trying to do this. I'm suggesting that the defendant is himself trying to take advantage of the leading questions without Ms. Westmoreland's knowledge to testify by nodding vigorously yes in response to her questions. The government, Ms. Shapiro said, Your Honor, I don't think that's fair, but I will, since I'm sitting at the counsel's table, I will go over to him before the questioning resumes and rewarn him of Your Honor's admonition. So that's kind of what kind of part of what the issue was, even though everybody's just like, he got admonished by the court. I was trying to see if I could find the sidebar about the message. If not, I'll just go back and let me see here. I don't know. I can't find it. If I find it, I'll probably just put it in the membership. But anyway, let me finish this motion, renewed motion for a mistrial. He probably was, Andre. He probably was. If you think somebody lying on you, what you about to sit there like? He's still a human at the end of the day. So was he probably doing too much? Probably. Probably like, oh. So now he probably just sitting there like, if you don't stop, just trying his best not to even like make any expressions. Naldo says she said Cassie was high and all cold. She did not see, but Cassie was in New York with Diddy. No, Cassie is the one I think that testified she was there, but she testified nobody else saw it. Then I think it was also information about her girlfriend that was there. Westmoreland brought that out as well. She said her ex-girlfriend was there. She ain't recall her last name, but she said her ex-girlfriend wouldn't know anything. She was the one that was supposed to be in Cassie's apartment as well. She said she wouldn't know anything because she already knows that she wouldn't know anything. So when they was trying, I guess, identify people that could corroborate this story, she said it was just her and Diddy, I believe, that was on the balcony. And then her girlfriend didn't know anything. Her girlfriend at the time couldn't cooperate. Well, we know who had the footage to send. We know that so either it was the hotel because they was able to still pull it off the server, or it was the guy who well, actually, the guy who took the money allegedly, he thought it was destroyed. That's what he testified to. So he didn't know there was another video. So either it was the guy who was on the stand initially who said that he recorded it on his phone for his wife to see. It could have been him, or it could have actually been that they never destroyed it at the hotel. So I don't know. You said yes. I said probably not into imaginary music. No, he probably did everything they said he was doing with how he was probably like, no, they not lying. I wasn't even here. Look on my itinerary. How you gonna lie on me and I ain't even here? You said y'all know if Puff gets the mistrial, he gonna have the biggest party in New York history. Now, if he gets an acquittal, he might have the biggest party. Mistrial, they might try to try him all over again. So, okay, let's get back to this motion here. Okay. What's more, when the defense began to expose the perjury on cross-examination, the government repeatedly attempted to disrupt the cross with unfounded objections and requests for sidebars and unfounded claims, such as that proper leading questions meant defense counsel was testifying. Then, despite having elicited Ventura's false testimony about having directly witnessed the alleged incident, the government persuaded the court to admit the hearsay text messages with quorum describing what Ventura had found out. So the word found out basically lets you know that she was not there. And so y'all had these text messages, so you knew when she was on the stand saying that she was there, it couldn't be truthful because she, and the text message that the government, I guess, at first did not plan to admit it. They felt like they had to admit it because I think they needed something to corroborate their witness who was basically falling apart on the stand where it looked like she was straight up lying. So then they say, despite having elicited perjurious testimony from Ventura claiming she saw the alleged conduct, all of this was highly improper and exacerbated the harm caused by suborning the perjured testimony. It bears emphasis that the use of the perjured testimony regarding the balcony incident is just one example of prosecutorial misconduct during the trial. The defense previously moved for a mistrial based on the improper line of questioning related to the 2012 destruction of fingerprints provided by Scott Mescuddy to the LAPD. As the court will recall, the defense argued that the government's motive in eliciting this testimony was to create an unfounded and a highly prejudicial inference that Mr. Combs somehow had corruptly arranged for the destruction of the fingerprints. The government claimed that was not the purpose of its questions and instead gave a narrow limiting instruction. So the court denied the motion, and then they're going to do a limited instruction, probably to say, you heard testimony that there were fingerprints. You are not supposed to say one way or another. Don't just automatically assume that Mr. Combs had anything to do with the finger. To me, it sounds like it brings more emphasis on it, but hey, they don't try to do a curative instruction for the jury to not consider that, or consider it in a way that it seems like Diddy has something to do with it. But this is the messed up part about that is they've allegedly, I guess they've had some jurors during voir dire who said they believe that people with money can get away with stuff as long as they got money. They can get people to do whatever they want them to do. So it kind of falls in that narrative. However, it became apparent shortly thereafter during the questioning of Mia the very next day that in fact the government's motive all doing must have been to suggest that Mr. Combs had corrupt influence over the LA authorities when he tried to create the impression that he was responsible for the destruction of the fingerprints. Specifically, the government elicited testimony from Mia about 2 incidents in which the LAPD did not issue a ticket for speeding after she was pulled over. So after you allude to fingerprints the day before, there's going to be a curative instruction. And then you get somebody on the stand, Mia, to say, yeah, he kind of had LAPD in his back pocket, which would circle back like, oh, he probably did have something to do with them fingerprints coming up missing. So this is, in one case, Mia got pulled over speeding, quote, name drop, that her boss was Mr. Combs and got him on the phone, after which the officer was, quote, saying like, oh my God, Puff Daddy, I love you. Like just went into this whole very excited conversation and then she let me go, end quote. So that's in the transcript. The second time Combs was in the car and once they saw Puff, they were like, oh, my bad, yeah, and left us alone. The prosecutor took special care to emphasize that these incidents occurred in Los Angeles. Question: what city did these interactions with the police occur in? Answer: LA. These incidents in isolation seem like benign examples of the police giving lenient treatment to popular famous people. Coupled with the sinister implications of the fingerprint destruction, however, they create a strong implication that the reason Mia, and as the government will surely argue, other alleged victims didn't go to the police was because of Mr. Combs' corrupt influence over the police and the LAPD in particular. In other words, the subsequent questioning of Mia, even if itself permissible, further corroborates that the government's real purpose in its questioning of the fire inspector, Lance Jimenez, was to improperly suggest that Mr. Combs corruptly caused the destruction of the fingerprints. This constitutes another instance of prosecutional misconduct. Accordingly, the court should grant a mistrial based on prosecutional misconduct. So that is their basis. They say they suborned perjury. They got perjury from Cassie, from Bongolan, all about this incident. They also talked about the fingerprint with Miss Cuddy. All this stuff was already brought up. And so they're doing a renewed motion and they're putting it all together to say, listen, this should be a mistrial. What are your thoughts? Vegan Bay said the government had time to get the story straight. Nado said, how can you mess up whether you were present or not when he hung your friend over a balcony? Wayne said, you have to have perfect memory if you're locking someone up 30 years. You said, child, you forgot all about Mia. Yeah, I think people kind of was like, then they said that Miss Bongolan was the worst witness. Jennifer said both things could be true. Girl and Dee Dee facing balcony. Cassie comes out and sees some. They do not see her or what she can see, given all the drugs and passage of time errors happen. The problem is Cassie was with Diddy, Jennifer. That's the problem. Yes, it's here. A lot of it is hearsay from the text message with KK. And let me see if I can find that. It was a text. And they were like, when they seen where this was going, they was like, sidebar, we wanna, let me see. Trying to see. I wanna say I think it's in this one, because I don't think I had cross-examination continued. Let me see if it was something they talked about towards the beginning. I'm sorry. But anyway, that's it. Y'all let me know what you think. I would have to find. I had it highlighted on one of them, but I think I lost my highlight. Let me see. Okay, yeah, here it go. Hold on. Okay, I'm about to read this sidebar. Okay, here you go, right here. So make sure you hit the like button. We're going to go over this conversation they were referring to. So, Your Honor, before we bring in the jury, this is the government. I just wanted to flag one thing briefly for the court. Following Ms. Bongolan's testimony, the government intends to offer a couple of exhibits. These exhibits are all related to a screenshot of a conversation between Christina Coram and Cassandra Ventura, in which Miss Ventura tells Miss Coram about this balcony incident that Miss Bongolan has testified about. This particular exhibit, the actual screenshot, was marked as a defense exhibit and was shown to Miss Ventura on cross-examination. It was not offered into evidence. The government plans to omit the screenshot as well as metadata and another related exhibit after Ms. Bongolan's testimony. I understand the defense will object to that. So in an effort not to delay anything today, the government will email what it intends to offer to the court, and maybe we can take it up on the next break. So then the court said, what's the nature of the objection? The government said, my understanding being I won't speak. And Ms. Shapiro, who was for Combs, said, Your Honor, I would be happy to address it. Can we put a version of one of the texts on the screen? So, Your Honor, the court said, well, first, let me hear the basis for the admission. This is under 801 D1B, or she said, Your Honor, I think there are multiple bases for admission. This is the government. First, as Your Honor pointed out, this is a prior consistent of Miss Ventura. The declarant, Miss Ventura, testified and was in fact subject to cross-examination on this very statement. The defense crossed Miss Ventura on this statement. So the court says, so this addresses the requirement in Cara Kappa. So then Ms. Slavic said, exactly. It's also admissible, Your Honor, under 8033 to show Ms. Ventura's state of mind. As Your Honor can see with the exhibit on the screen, Ms. Ventura recounts the incident. She says he came into my house when my friends were here and we were all sleeping. They woke me up because he was ringing the bell crazy at 3 a.m. And when he came in, I went to my room and he went at Bana and choked her and then dangled her feet off the balcony. This is crazy. I have to stay away. So, Your Honor, I think this is important, and that it shows Miss Ventura's state of mind. The content of this message, it not only relays the incident, but it immediately provides Miss Ventura's reaction to the incident. In other words, this is crazy. I have to stay away. I think this is Heartland 8033 state of mind evidence. It's also important here, I think, that Miss Ventura is expressing her fear of Mr. Combs to Miss Coram, who is an agent and a co-conspirator of Mr. Combs. So that's where they got, what's going in there. This message shows Miss Coram's knowledge of Miss Ventura's fear. In other words, this message is used to show the effect of the listener, Miss Coram. And under those several bases, the government's position is that the screenshot is admissible. So the court said, can you situate the balcony incident in terms of what's alleged in the indictment? Like, can you connect the dots between the balcony incident and the government's case? Why is it relevant? So that's what the court asking. So the government says, Your Honor, the relevance of this incident, which took place squarely in the middle of the conspiracy, is that it shows Mr. Combs' violence directed not only to Miss Ventura, but to other people around Miss Ventura. She is aware of this violence, and because of her awareness, I think that contributes to the coercive atmosphere. So she's saying she was aware of how Diddy was doing and treating people, and because she was aware, it shows the coercive atmosphere. So it goes to the coercion because it's evidence. The court said, and the government said, goes to coercion. The court said, sorry, not to interrupt. Government said, of course. So the court said goes to the psychological coercion because she's aware there is violence being perpetrated, not only against her, but people in her orbit. The government said, correct. The court said, during the time period of the conspiracy, so that's relevant to the substantive 1591 count. It's also relevant to the alleged conspiracy because it also encompasses the acts that are separately charged under 1591 count. So the government said that's exactly right. And on that point, I will note this is one of the speaking allegations in the indictment. So then the court said, all right, now Ms. Shapiro said, yes, Your Honor. First of all, I would like to give the court a little more context than the government provided. What happened was that on direct, Ms. Ventura testified that she personally observed this alleged balcony incident, and the cross examination was designed to impeach that testimony because, in fact, she did not observe it as this. If this text even relates to it, this text makes clear the text is hearsay within hearsay. She says, and these are parts that, interestingly, the government chose not to read to Your Honor at the beginning. She says, "Hey, I just found out some crazy ish." And then she describes the things the government wants in. And then at the end, she says, "I'm just finding out right now." So she was told this story apparently while she was in the room sleeping. All this stuff was happening, and her friend got dangled over the balcony on whatever date it was. This is what somebody told her, probably her friend Bryana. So she never saw Puff. It sounds like she's saying this is crazy ish, and I'm whatever she says. She says she hadn't. The entirety of the text, I guess, shows that she's just finding out that this even happened, which means how you just finding out it happened if you actually saw it. Okay. And we also don't know when this text was sent, but most importantly, she is reporting what someone else told her. We don't even know who told her because she says it came into my house while my friends were here and we were all sleeping. So it's hearsay within hearsay because at best for the government, she's potentially reporting that Ms. Bongolan told her, and so that in itself is a hearsay problem. To the extent the government is now apparently, I think, if I heard them correctly, saying it's a prior consistent statement by Ms. Ventura, we attempted to impeach her with this document. And what she testified to was, and this is at page 1069 to 1071 for the full context, but we put the text up to try to get her to admit that she had not observed the incident contrary to her testimony, which she did not. And then, we asked her, "Did you tell Miss Coram that you had just learned something crazy?" And then she says, "Well, now it's taken down, but I saw that. I did text that. I don't know if that's what I'm referring to because a lot of crazy things happened." And then if you follow it down, she tries to refresh her recollection. "Isn't it true that you learned about this incident after the fact?" "I saw what I saw. I don't know." So they just can't overcome the hearsay within hearsay problem presented by this. And if they wanted to introduce this text, the time would have been on the redirect of Miss Ventura. But instead, they liked her testimony that she claimed to have observed the incident, and she, testified on cross. She didn't remember. She didn't know what the text was referring to. And so, to that extent, the government is claiming this is in for Miss Ventura's state of mind. It just doesn't make any sense because what they're really trying to get in is the hearsay within hearsay about what someone else told Ms. Ventura about this alleged incident. I mean, it's a backward looking statement. The court said, "No, I understand. All right, let's do this." So this is something, Ms. Slavic, that you would seek to introduce after Ms. Bongolan's testimony. And she said, "That's right, Your Honor. And just to be clear, I think having heard Ms. Westmoreland's cross of Ms. Bongolan, I think the very clear suggestion from cross-examination is defense's suggestion that this event never happened at all, that Ms. Ventura and Ms. Bongolan are somehow making up this event. So I think that's important context to consider." The court said, "So let's say that Ms. Shapiro is right. So you're saying the top level hearsay is either Ms. Ventura's state of mind or the effect on Ms. Coram of hearing that this event actually happened. And then to the extent that Ms. Ventura heard what she reported from Ms. Bongolan, then that would go under 801D1B because it would be a statement by Ms. Bongolan that is consistent with her testimony that has now been subject to cross-examination." Government says, "Exactly right, Your Honor. I think that solves the hearsay within hearsay issue, but the effect on the listener and the state of mind the government is offering." The court said, "Does it matter that she didn't remember the text message when she was asked about it?" The government said, "Absolutely not, Your Honor. And let me just point out that the metadata of this text message, which has been provided to defense counsel, which the government intends to offer along with the screenshot, shows the screenshot, the exhibit we're looking at on the screen, was captured on September 30th, 2016. So very shortly after the incident. So this text she allegedly sent Christina was sent on the September 30th. All right. Your Honor, two things. This is Diddy's attorney. Your Honor, two things. First of all, contrary to the government's points, we don't know from this text message who told Miss Ventura whatever she heard. And 801D1 only applies to the clearance witness's prior statement. The text message on his face doesn't say how she heard about this. It could have been from one of the other friends who were in the apartment. In addition, it's a backward looking statement, and there's a reference to she could press charges. And undertone that it wouldn't come in even if the prerequisites were satisfied, which they're not, because the text on his face doesn't make clear who told her this, and she testified that she didn't remember this. The court said understood. Let me ask Ms. Slavic just a logistical question, which is, you're not planning to use this with Ms. Bongolan. She said, no, we're not planning to show it to Ms. Bongolan. What we would propose is after Ms. Bongolan leaves the stand, we would offer this screenshot as well as the metadata, as well as a capture of Ms. Quorum's contact for Ms. Ventura into evidence, and then read the screenshot. The court said, so we can do this. And I understand you want to do it close in time to Ms. Bongolan's testimony, but if we needed to do this tomorrow so I could take a look at the actual document, that would not do great violence to the government's agenda in terms of presenting this evidence. The government said, Your Honor, it's right that the purpose of this screenshot is its relevance to Ms. Bongolan's testimony. So the government would strongly prefer to present it at that time. But should the court need more time to consider these issues, I don't think it would be great violence, maybe a little bit of violence. Okay, fair enough. So we'll pick this up at the next break. With that, nothing further. I'm getting a no. So yeah. So Ms. Shapiro said, Your Honor, I think it would be helpful to us on the cross-examination if the court issued its ruling now, if it's at all possible, so we know whether this is going to come in or not. The court said, but it's not going to be used. Ms. Shapiro said, we're not going to use it. The court said, you want to ask questions about it? Ms. Shapiro said, we're not going to use it, obviously. The court said, so what's the purpose of having a definitive ruling now? Ms. Shapiro said, we'll just need to know, whether it would affect the cross. The court said, in what way? She said, well, we need to know if the court is notwithstanding the fact that the text doesn't say and there's no foundation laid that a declarant witness's prior statement is contained in the text. We need to know if the court's view is otherwise. I mean, I don't want to pressure Your Honor. I'm just asking, obviously. The court said, all right, well, let me think about that for a second, because I'm being told that the overflow rooms were muted when I gave them at least the initial part of the instructions that I gave to everybody. So let me take this opportunity while everyone is listening and not muted to remind everyone in the overflow room they are not to in any way, shape, or form document the witness who is testifying next, Jane, and any notes or sketches or anything of that kind. I think that's the part of my instruction that was muted in the overflow. Okay, so that was pretty much what the conversation was about the text message. So there's that. Okay, let me get a few of your questions and then I'm gonna get off of here. Crimson said the judge is taking his time with this latest mistrial motion. It's serious this time. No, they just filed it now. This is a renewal. So if it's renewed, that means he probably denied it before. Anything else? Naldo said no one believes Diddy about the DV. This is not a DV case. Classy said, I don't understand how they have this man sitting in jail with his life on the line with all of these unreliable witnesses. Mind your business said desperation. D. Ham said, yes, lying on the stand is perjury. That is called perjury. Mind your business said nothing in her text says she didn't see it, other than I just found out. She also says in text she saw it. If you say I just found out, why would you say I just found out something if you saw it? Why would you say I just found out this is when I was asleep? When I was asleep, Diddy came in my apartment, did A, B, C, D, and E. I just found out. How do you just found out but also see it at the same time? And how were you asleep when it happened and you saw it? Child. All right. Not all their witnesses perjured themselves, but it's a lot of them that made you side eye. Okay. That's what they do. Yes, it was a screen. The metadata showed September 30th. Of course, that would have been what, the next day after they said he was doing a bad boy tour in New York or New Jersey till the 29th, I think. They had checked into the hotel. So she received this on the 30th. So what I think what they're trying to establish, this is what's messing them up. She testified, her being Bryana, that when she took the picture, it was on the same day it happened. I think if she would have generally testified something different, because either way it's going to be, if you say I don't know what happened, oh, I just relied on that. No, you said it was September 26th and this is where he was at. That's what caught her up. That's where I think with Jane Doe, you'll see her where she's saying, they're like, is it a guess? And she's like, yeah, I'm just guessing. It was around September 2023. Is that a guess? Yes. When was he arrested? Around August. Is that a guess? Because you don't want to give definitive dates about anything that you don't think they really know the definitive dates. She's claiming, with these pictures, she took them and it was the same day it happened. If it happened even the day before, he wasn't there. So on the 30th, when you're talking about a text message that came through, she said, I just heard this information. We don't know where she heard it from. It could have been her friend told her, like, yeah, your homeboy came in here tripping and he had me dangling off of a banister. And so she heard it. Interesting enough, Cassie felt like she needed this in her complaint. And she called Bryana, like, do you mind if I use your name? And Bryana apparently did not want her putting this story in her complaint. She didn't want her name even in there. So that's all I'm saying. When she said it was the same day, that's when she jacked up. Now, she said I didn't immediately do anything. I took it. It was within the week or two or something that was more generalized. But you literally said the day I took these pictures to show my injuries. And the thing is, she needed to have show some injuries because she needs it for a potential lawsuit anyway. Like she's gonna have to show bruising because she could have went to the chiropractor. There are people that just go to the chiropractor to go to the chiropractor. I know people that go 3 times a week. It ain't because of no for real injuries. They just bad posture or whatever the rationale is. Whiplash from years ago. It's people that literally go 3 times a week for I don't know how many years. So I think she needed to show a timeline to try to prove that this happened, especially for the civil lawsuit portion of it. So I don't know. Tomorrow Leaders Sports Network said this is why I said that 20K was for something else, not to keep no freak off tapes from being shown after he paid $5 million for it. That's a little shaky for me too, because if you're gonna pay $5 million to keep something off yourself, why would you pay $20,000 to tell somebody I'm gonna put the exact same tapes out if you don't give me 20,000? And then he does not listen. The way we looking at Diddy like you nasty right now as the public, he ain't want this information out. You think he want people to know that he actually likes it DIZK pics and he likes somebody else's semen, like having relations with that on his body. You think he wanted us to know that? Y'all can't, I don't care how freaky he is. Like, no, cool. Why would he want this information to get out? I don't think he would, because we all looking at him like, you nasty. Because honestly, the freak offs to me, it looked like it was a way for him to look at, like almost watching a man is what may have got him to that point where he can properly perform or something. So if you're with your woman and he's like FaceTime him, like you're not even so basically y'all watching these corn flicks, right? And you want her to FaceTime and DM the dudes, but none of them women the dudes on there with, you ain't never said, well, what about a female? And I think Cassie was catching on because Cassie approached him. She said at one point where she said she was thinking about having a female because, and that seems more so what most dudes be trying to get. So the fact that you sitting there and you're like, I'm doing this with you, but I need you to FaceTime somebody, mirror it on the screen, while he's showing himself by himself. Like, come on. Most people don't want their intimate activities out. I agree, Mo Better. But Cassie did say they had a female a few times. She said she wanted that. She suggested it. See through you. That's what she said. You know what? If they have a mistrial and they have a do-over, will they be able to have new witnesses and victims testify because the government is struggling? They would have to try to re-indict them. I don't know. I'm watching like y'all. Cheney said, but this went on for years and he never messed with any of the men. We have not heard any testimony of him messing with the men. He just wanted to watch them. He didn't want them to have rubbers on them. And he wanted to, when they reached their peak, he liked the fluids all on his body, allegedly, and playing in it and stuff. I just take with that what you will. I'm just saying. You think he wanted that out? The bad boy that's running and getting GUNs and trying to hunt down Suge Knight allegedly and all. You think he want that information out? So I just doubt. He was just like, I'm going to let this out, the stuff that you, okay. Unless none of them were when he was with them. And it was just showing her with the guy, and that's all they was recording. So they never recorded him being a part of it. I don't know if anybody recorded him being a part of it, but I think Cassie did mention something where he was there. I think it was the urination thing. They was both there doing that to her. So it was some things, I guess, where he did somewhat get involved, but perhaps he was just recording the activities of them with the other men as opposed to him even be a part of it. So you don't even know what he was doing except for the testimony that's out. So I guess in theory, it may not have affected him like that. So I don't know. I'm just following it like y'all is. But anyway, y'all, it's been an hour and a half. And I'm about to get off of here. He didn't want that out, so I don't blame him for having the resource to buy the tape. He was saving Cassie as well. He said Cassie was the most upset about it. You said he nasty. It's crazy. It is. Yeah. I think some of this is embellished because the ladies want to some get back. It may be, but we'll see. We follow. We'll see what happens. I'm sure the government will respond. They be working every day, 24 hours, okay? This will happen when you got a high-profile, rich client. All right? All of your other cases, you giving it off to your associates because this is your priority morning, noon, and night. You're probably hardly getting sleep. You got to be ready for anything. But anyway, y'all, thank you so much for coming on again for the second time. Make sure you... And I'm going to holler at y'all later, all right? Have a good night.